South Africa runs on trucks. Every single piece of food that you eat, every single piece of steel that goes into a building, all of it moves on the backs of hundreds of thousands of trucks crawling on our roads on a daily basis. But behind all of that movement, there is rot. Because the same network that is supposed to keep the country alive is being eaten from the inside out by corruption, sabotage, and criminal syndicates. So then, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about the South African trucking industry to uncover how this vital part of our economy is being used to take from the very South Africans that it is supposed to be providing for. But before we get into the video, you already know what time it is, fam. Time to thank the sponsor of the channel, JULUKAWORX. JULUKAWORX is an online platform designed to connect skilled artisans with contractors and businesses who actually need their services. If you are a skilled individual with competencies and qualifications that you have worked for years to acquire, all you need to do is go on to julukaworx.co.za, create a profile, list all of those qualifications and competencies, and number one, either just sit back, relax, and wait for a company looking for you to find you, or number two, search on JULUKAWORX to find posts by contractors looking for people with your exact skill sets. And on the flip side, if you yourself are a business owner, a contractor, or a homeowner, and you're either looking for skilled employees or even domestic workers, go on to JULUKAWORX, create an account, and search for whatever kind of employee that you are looking for, with the peace of mind of knowing that each and every employee that is listed on JULUKAWORX has been properly vetted and proven to be someone who is going to be a valuable addition to your team. So whether you are a skilled individual looking for work or you are a contractor looking for reliable employees, make sure to hit up julukaworx.co.za and support the people who give C&J Holdings life. Support the people who support the channel, guys. Thank you very much to JULUKAWORX for sponsoring this video, and back to the video. Socrates once said, the beginning of wisdom is the definition of terms. And so if we want to talk about the South African trucking industry in any meaningful way, we must first deeply understand and define how it works. You can basically think of trucking companies like contractors for the road. If a company needs something transported from one place to another, they reach out to a trucking company. The company then takes said thing, transports it to where it needs to go, and then invoices the manufacturer or whatever company that originally requested their services. And because trucking is basically like contracting for the road, it is a very competitive field, so you need to have a competitive rate per kilometer that you charge. Rate per kilometer is basically what you calculated as a company that you want to charge to customers to transport their goods per kilometer. This is obviously based on what your costs are as a company per kilometer. Very complicated stuff that you have to kind of calculate. That determines most of the time if you get contracts, because most of the time there are different companies kind of bidding to get jobs. And even besides bidding, generally just a company with a very competitive rate per kilometer price is often a company that will get a lot of jobs. Obviously out there it's all about who can do things the cheapest. So in trucking, it is about finding that balance between being affordable so that you get customers who actually want your services, but also trying to be profitable as well, which kind of makes it a bit difficult to succeed in this field. Something else that makes it more challenging, I should say, to be very successful in trucking, it is a very necessary component, but it is still challenging, is all of the compliance that you, your companies, your employees, and your vehicles have to go through. Your vehicles always have to stay road ready and be in possession of a certificate of fitness. Your drivers have to be trained and in possession of a PDP, and obviously have the cognitive ability to operate a truck in challenging situations, something that only extensive training and experience can give drivers. If you're transporting dangerous goods, which are called DG, or hazardous chemicals, which are called HAZCAMs, is that right? HAZCAM, yes. Hazardous chemicals, which are called HAZCAM, your vehicle has to be registered as that type of operator and have a disc displayed on the windscreen that kind of acts as a permit, giving you the permission to transport such goods. Right, so now that we know widely how it operates, let's ask the question of just how big is trucking in this country. Kevin Kelly, the CEO of the Road Freight Association, said that trucks at the moment account for about 80% of all goods that are transported in and around South Africa. Trucks are responsible for 80% of everything that is being transported around this country. That's how big this industry is. And the market of our industry, the market size of freight and logistics in South Africa, is estimated to be around $14.4 billion. Dollars, not rands. Dollars, and it's projected to grow to reach $19.9 billion by the year 2030. So this is a very big industry, very fundamental industry that is only going to grow even bigger as time goes on. But like any business in South Africa, it isn't without its challenges. The roads in this country are poop. The roads in this country are really bad. I couldn't use the actual word there because, you know, YouTube monetization and sponsors and stuff like that, but you get what I was trying to say. Roads in this country are really bad, which contributes to increased maintenance cost because trucks go through a lot more tires, they wear through parts a lot more, which increases the cost that trucking companies have to endure when carrying out their services. And the ever increasing price of fuel, I feel like not only in South Africa, kind of feels like a global phenomenon that's happening right now. The increase in how much fuel costs is once again something else that contributes to companies having to take on more cost, which leads to them having to increase their rate per kilometer, increase the price for their services, because obviously when you have increased costs, you have to compensate for that so that you stay profitable, which, as you will see later on, has a lot of consequences outside of the trucking industry. But yeah, fuel price is also something that is hitting the trucking industry very hard right now. And insurance cost is rising for trucking companies in South Africa just because of the nature of South Africa. We're a very naughty country. Naughty South Africa. We like being violent, we like crime, we like hijacking, and we like a whole lot of the other things we're about to talk about in this video as well, which you'll see what I was talking about when we get there. But companies have to pay more in insurance now because there's just a lot more unpredictability on our roads as a country, which they directly have to pay for in the form of insurance. And beyond these surface level issues that you will undoubtedly have to face if you want to get into this business, at a certain point you'll have to face them and find solutions to them. These are you can't escape them. They are a part of the business itself. There are also much deeper and darker problems with the sector that make you question the viability of this business, that make you question wanting to get into this business when getting into this business could literally cost you your life. A mafia is defined as a secretive criminal organization that operates outside the law through a hierarchy. A mafia is a secretive criminal organization that operates outside the law through hierarchy, engaging in activities like drug trafficking, extortion, and money laundering. These groups are often characterized by a strict code of conduct and use violence, intimidation, and corruption to get what they want and maintain their power. Now, I just gave you the definition of a mafia because that is a term that can be used to describe the criminal syndicates responsible for the penetration of crime in South African trucking. In the first half of last year, in the first half of 2024 alone, hijackings accounted for 54% of vehicle-related crimes, and vehicles that were owned by businesses, business-owned vehicles, were disproportionately more at risk than just normal cars driven by you or me. I mean, to give you just like a scope of the scale of what I'm saying here, in the Eastern Cape, business vehicles are 43% more likely to be targeted by hijacking syndicates than the normal vehicles. And stuff like courier vans and trucks, freight trucks, they are kind of the most prized target, I would say, just because of the value of the stuff that they're carrying within them. And I kind of understand why business vehicles would be targeted in this way, because business vehicles tend to carry the apparatus used to carry out business. So they can be carrying stuff like tools. If that business is a freight company, they can be carrying literal millions of rands worth of equipment, appliances, sneakers, even everything that you can kind of imagine. So obviously they will be disproportionately targeted. And according to Gavin Kelly, the CEO of the Road Freight Association that we talked about earlier, these vehicles are now facing mafia-style attacks where people are not only stealing them, but they are stealing them and the contents within them. Because, for example, if you hit a buggy or a truck full of iPhones, the iPhones within that truck more often than not are going to be worth more than even the truck itself. I mean, you can still sell the truck, but with selling an entire vehicle, there's a lot more admin involved compared to iPhones that you can just anonymously pop on Facebook Marketplace and have it sold the same day probably as when you hijacked the vehicle. It is unfortunately just money that is really quick and very hard to trace. I mean, how are you going to trace everything sold on stuff like Facebook Marketplace, Gumtree? It's implausible. Not saying impossible, but it's implausible compared to something big like a car. That's a bit easier to trace. But once you sell the content within that vehicle, then you have yourself an unfortunately very profitable business there. A new report from I'm gonna have to read this because this is just like unreasonably long, from the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime revealed that trucks used to transport fresh goods such as flowers and fruits were used to smuggle weapons from Namibia into the Western Cape. Trucks just out here delivering lethal begonias and bananas. It's crazy. It's crazy. These weapons included pistols and my favorite gun and probably the best gun ever made, the AK-47 Kalashnikov Baba. Now, I didn't just say what I just said because I am glorifying gun violence in South Africa and glorifying what these guns are being used for, which is what we're about to talk about. I'm just saying the AK-47 is a really sick gun. I think that's a statement that a lot of you guys are going to agree with me on. Nothing is better than AK-47. Anyways, moving on. It was actually reported by people, by sources within gangs, that this trade route from Namibia to the Western Cape was actually active and being used all the way back in 2016, 9 years ago. And from 2016, this operation only grew and became worse or better, depending on which side of the law you're on, with it being reported that dozens of guns were being shipped at a time by 2021. And obviously when you're smuggling, well, anything, you kind of have to smuggle it. You can't just put it in the back of the truck. So these trucks had special compartments for hiding these weapons, and these compartments, some of them could store up to 20 guns at a time. And obviously once you have a compartment there that allows you to ship something, you're going to want to ship more than weapons. So this operation is also reported to include the smuggling of stuff like diamonds and, well, humans. And actually someone who is linked to these operations within the fresh goods transportation sector says that allegedly a majority of their income actually comes from smuggling diamonds. And yes, this might be a relatively small operation, but the frequency at which it's happening is the scary part. This is a very active operation. And obviously once you're able to get illegal guns into the country, there's no telling what else you could smuggle in as well. But wait, my friends, there's more, because not only are trucks used to smuggle weapons and humans into this country, they're also used to smuggle coal out of this country as well. On the 12th of October 2023, the people that we love the most in this country, the most loved company in this entire country, a corporation that takes our money for no reason whatsoever, SARS, they and law enforcement conducted raids across the province that uncovered a coal smuggling syndicate operating all over the country. Don't you just love SARS? Don't you just love it when you have to pay them at the end of the year for no reason whatsoever, with money that you worked for and that they had nothing to do with the making of? Don't you just love SARS? Isn't SARS just lovely? Okay, I'm gonna stop before they send me an email, because I'm a creator making money on the internet and I am not giving them their share. Right, let's move on. The lovely people at SARS said that these operations are active in Gauteng, Mpumalanga, Limpopo, and KZN. And how these guys operate is that they will use corruption to get tenders for transporting coal from where it is dug into our power stations. And what they will do is that they will divert the coal from where it is mined, not to the power stations where it's supposed to be. It has to take a bit of a detour, a bit of an off-ramp before it gets to where it's supposed to be going, and it is taken to coal yards. What they do in these coal yards is they unload all of the high-grade, good quality coal and they swap it for lower grade coal that is subpar. It is not to the quality that was initially supposed to get to the power station. And then they take the higher grade stuff and they smuggle it out of the country and make millions and potentially billions of rands. And when the lower grade coal gets to power stations and it's supposed to be processed into electricity for us, well, I want you to imagine what would happen to your body if you drank milk that expired last year. Yeah, your body is a power station and the expired milk is the coal coming from these syndicates. Very bad things happen. This contributes to significant infrastructure damage to our power stations and causes load shedding, directly causes load shedding. So not only are these criminal syndicates illegally smuggling weapons into this country, weapons that fill our streets with the blood of young men who have no other choice but to resort to crime and violence to survive, they also fundamentally undermine one of South Africa's most critical and most fragile pieces of infrastructure. And in doing so, they plunge the country into darkness and put a tremendous amount of strain on an already very fragile economy. But believe it or not, my friends, it gets worse, because beyond just the recent hike in hijackings and the use of trucks to smuggle stuff into the country, there's also the very complicated and often controversial relationship between foreign nationals and the trucking industry in South Africa. 2 years ago, more than 20 trucks were set alight on our major highways within the span of a week in KZN, Limpopo and Mpumalanga. And this was because of tension that existed between foreign and South African truck drivers that had kind of started building up since 2019, because South African drivers claimed that these foreign nationals were stealing their jobs. And this tension that had been building up led up to an event 2 years ago that we just talked about, which is foreign nationals, foreign truck drivers to be specific, being attacked and their trucks being set alight on the N3 and N2 highways. And the reasons truck drivers cited for companies preferring foreign nationals over them, over South African born drivers, is that foreign nationals are easier to exploit, they're easier to overwork and underpay, because foreign nationals, especially illegal foreign nationals, they can't fight for their rights. They can't fight for stuff like medical aid. They can't fight for stuff like fair working hours, fair pay, a pension fund. That's something that only South African born individuals have the privilege of fighting for. And so these companies will get rid of those people who can fight for those things in favor for people who are easier to take advantage of. But how true is this? Well, last month, Operation #Nenzani la ezweni. This name. I can't say this operation name without kind of laughing a little bit. Kind of sounds like law enforcement asking the trucking industry, hey, anyway, so yeah, that operation stopped more than 98 truck drivers and interviewed 47 of them. And these interviews revealed some very interesting stuff about how this trucking industry works in the country. It revealed that there are no kind of formal relationships between drivers and companies. Drivers aren't on written contracts, which is hard to believe, but that's what the report says. It also says that KZN truck drivers who want to be formally under contract are often just replaced for foreign nationals. And once again, like I said, once you start exercising such things as rights and such, you get replaced by people who don't have the privilege to exercise those same things. It was reported that owners of trucks who hired foreign nationals often gave these foreign national bribes so that they could bypass any kind of law enforcement that they come across on the road. Once again, if you're a foreign national, it's very difficult for you to be properly documented and have the proper certifications and qualifications that are required of truck drivers in this country. So one way to bypass that is to just pay off any law enforcement whenever you get stopped. Truck drivers don't get pay slips. Their pay experiences unlawful deductions. They work for long hours that violate the Basic Conditions for Employment Act. They don't get paid for overtime. They don't get paid for rest days. They don't get paid for public holidays. They don't get paid for Sundays. They don't get leave days, and they're only paid per load. There's no basic salary. Some very scary stuff coming out of the trucking industry. You kind of have to ask yourself, is it the trucking industry or the taxi industry, with the amount of exploitation that you have to go through, and the fact that, like taxi drivers, truck drivers don't have anywhere else to look. If you leave the trucking industry, what are you going to do in this country? There are no other jobs. If you're fortunate enough to get that job in trucking, you are going to comply with all of these absurd things that these companies are doing, just because you at the end of the day, you need to provide for your family. So yeah, there is actual real merit to what truck drivers in 2023 were protesting against. Foreign nationals are exploited at the expense of equally or even more qualified South African drivers. And this is a problem that cannot be ignored. It is a problem that needs decisive, urgent action from the highest levels of our government in order to fix, because the consequences of a broken trucking industry extend far further than just the industry itself. My friends, let us now discuss the social and economic consequences of everything that we've discussed so far. Because as you can appreciate, the collapse of such a fundamental pillar of any country's economy and society ripples far and wide. The first economic impact of the collapse of the trucking industry and its criminalization is on supply chains. Supply chains collapse when the trucking industry collapses as well. Like we said before, trucks transport 80% of everything that needs to be transported in this country. And so when you don't have that, retailers can't get products to stores, manufacturers can't get products out of their factories into the hands of retailers, farmers can't get food out of their farms, they can't get everything that they need to farm into the farms in the first place. There is just a fundamental collapse of production supply chains in the entire country. And because of supply and demand, when there's less supply, there's going to be more demand, and when there's more demand, prices are going to increase, something that causes inflation. Not only do rising fuel prices, rising insurance prices, and everything else that we've talked about, the rising maintenance prices because of the lack of infrastructure and lack of proper roads on the country, not only do those factors put strain on trucking companies, causing them to increase their prices, but the result of the trucking industry itself collapsing also, like I said, has a impact on everything in this country. Food, clothing, everything you can imagine, everything that you can buy right now is affected by the trucking industry. And the trucking industry contributes to products like that, contributing to inflation. And obviously, once you have higher inflation in a country, there's going to be a disinterest from foreign investors, because you don't want to invest in a country that seems to be unstable and seems to be going into the proverbial trash can there. On a societal level, untrained drivers or drivers that are overworked are at risk of causing more road accidents, which affect South African road users directly. The hijackings and violent crimes around the trucking industry lately also put people's lives in danger, not only the truck drivers themselves, but everyone around the truck drivers on the road in that particular instance. During that particular hijacking, you might be driving by a truck hijacking and catch a stray bullet to the head and lose your life. There's a real tangible consequence to the increase in these truck hijacking. And obviously, like I lightly touched on before, the smuggling of weapons into our communities, into the hands of these young gang members, contributes to the death of all these young people, contributes to increase in crime in communities, contributes to innocent bystanders losing their lives for no reason, and just a generally less safe environment for everyone in this country. And like I said before, the low-grade coal that gets taken to power stations damages those power stations, which affects our ability to produce electricity, which creates load shedding, and the consequences of load shedding are just too many to count. When there's no electricity, there's higher crime, the country is less productive. There's just so many consequences to load shedding stemming from truck related crime. And obviously now zooming more into the trucking industry, the exploitation of our foreign drivers and their hiring over actual South African drivers is something that contributes to unemployment as well, because people who work harder to get their qualifications and competencies to be able to be a truck driver in South Africa are not chosen simply because they are South African. In their place is a foreign national who is unfortunately unable to fight for the right and who is ripe for exploitation. I feel like I don't know how many times I've said exploitation in this video, but it is a main theme in this trucking industry, as we've seen throughout the course of the entire video. Generally, trucks are involved in almost everything that we do on a daily basis. And so when you have that very industry threatened by crime, threatened by corruption, and threatened by bad actors, you have a situation where the entire country now is being fundamentally broken. You can't have something that is so key to our entire economy, to our society as a whole. You can't have that thing be broken and not have the entire country itself be broken as well. But instead of doing what I normally do and saying what I think could be done to right all of the wrongs that we've talked about over the course of this video, I am going to give you guys the floor. Comment down below. Tell me what you think could be done to fix everything that I have talked about in this video, whether you are an expert in logistics, whether you are an expert in law enforcement, whether you are just sitting at home chilling and you have a thought. No matter what it is, comment down below and tell me what you think. I'll be very interested to see what you guys come up with. But that is it for the video about the trucking industry in South Africa. Someone actually commented this topic while I was researching this video, which was kind of funny. I kind of told him in the comments that, hey, it's kind of on the way. You've read my mind there a little bit, but it was very interesting to dive deep into this world, because I, like a lot of you guys watching this video, I'm assuming, did not have a lot of knowledge about all of the stuff that was happening in trucking in South Africa. I always had this suspicion that, hey man, this industry, something is not something in here, man. Something is off here, you know. But I never truly delved deep into it, and so it was very insightful to learn everything that we learned over the course of this video. We have dropped an hour-long video for members only, an hour-long vlog of everything that has happened in the business over the past week. So if you want to check that out, please do support the channel and go check out JULUKAWORX.co.za. Please go check out JULUKAWORX.co.za. Go support the people who make the vision, who make the dream possible. These are the people who are building C&J Holdings financially. So please go give them some love, please. Right, but yeah, thank you very much for watching, and until the next one, goodbye.